Okay, let's talk about The Wall. The Wall is a multimedia project by the band Pink Floyd, continued up an 1880s album, and 9 albums from 1980, 1991, 1992 from the metal film, and then adapted the tour, and a 15 concert film, and a 2016 opera. The plot of the opera, the center of star Pink struggles with addiction and executive abuse. In the midst of an emotional spiral, Pink recognized that today's activist life led him to this point, including vivid fabrications of his father in World War II, his memories of the Blitz, his relationship with his mother, creative section, the gay marriage, and a job in a music industry he is treated like gravity abused, all of which form the metaphorical emotional wall that Pink uses to separate himself from the world. I want to focus on most of the 1982 film because I did, in my opinion, the version that meets most with the concept. Made by the invited for frontman of Roger Waters, directed by a Barker animation from the Florida. It is a heavy film. It can be hard to watch. It comes from a very place, originally speaking, with a lot of disturbing imagery. Made of an angry film. When we grew up and went to school, there were certain children who would hurt the children any way they could. It's very abstract in its presentation and really highlights the imagery rather than conventional narrative, and this is by the strength and the benefit of the movie. Its action is very true, weirdly, very efficient, allowing me to be about a lot of things simultaneously, letting some to the other. Movie pinpoints between war, classism, fidelity, the criminalization of youth culture, Thatcherism, generational trauma, commodification, homegrown fascism for the missions that bear about being the parties, and is able to do this very relevantly. The limit there is to the form, often incoherent, struggling, vocalize, manifest, the exact tip of the subject. Falling back on abstract imagery to suggest emotional truth where literalism is insufficient. This allows the film to create a really powerful moments, a running motif in the anti-war expressed as a seething rage of the identification of them. Roger Waterfather was an debtor during the war. World War II, the pacifist who drove ambulances during the Blitz. In 1943, however, he changed his mind. He was the commissaire in the tenant in September of that year. He was dead 5 minutes later. In Goodbye Blue Skies, Union Jack Jetters, the thesis, it's Barrero and Fester. English nationalism is just blood in the gutter. Soldiers sent to war don't die for the war, they just die. The boys beat the Germans but came home just in time to build atom bombs. Symbols shift and merge, break apart, juxtaposed to create justice in a way that is difficult to do using words, and core to the thing. No one specific thing is very the was. There is no singular source of the synchronicity that isolates one another, the suppressing us, that brutalizes us, that exploits us. They are all just bricks on the wall. This abstraction, though, can also be read in film. A lot of the film imagery, 400 years later, a lot of us juvenile makes you think shallowness to it. We went down by variations of the commentary work there, the numbers, and no part, they're actually influenced by the wall. That cheapens the wall simply by association. The lack of concise resolution, lack of intent, it spins some favors as the powerful type of layer of closure. Also leaves the door open and symbols take counter the intent and anti meaning. A centerpiece of the moment is when Pink suffering from members where I will meaning to record and think is who image to be dressed and pushed on the stage. In this state, Pink realizes himself as an alter ego, a fascist dictator who inducted teens primed by the educational system into hating violence. Sequence paintings themed fast like hell and the albums including the musings of hate crime and sexual violence. The film's imagery of cross hammers, invented for the movie as a deliberate imaging of contemporary fascism, and his ability to utilize the banal, the blunt, the simplistic, was adopted in 1988 by actual neo-Nazi group Skins. Those fans of provocation, who both active in other hate organizations to this day. The potent imagery structured as a condemnation was still adopted by people who saw the violence not as horrifying but as aspirational. The character of Pink holds fears and resentment towards women that are emotionally challenging towards the screen, and while a mature audience can sparse the difference between characters and reality, the film's lack of reality closer to little guidance on what the audience is supposed to take away from the depictions of him Pink being devoured by a preserved addict and lighted flower. And part of that is due to the film and emotional rawness, the dark place of the silent, the thoughts and fears of the beliefs are not rational, are deeply potent and extremely present. Pink intellectually understands that own self-destruction and invasion was drove his wife away, but he momentarily he still conceptualizes her as a presumed predator. It doesn't all make sense. Daughters of Chaos, because we don't all make sense. Everyone lives in a constructed out by brick out of chaos. So when the world is from less, certainly not for everyone, there is still a real deep emotional here. Human story about anxiety, the self and the fragility of the hypocrisy of the power. The album is good, but it was always written by a visual component in it. The content of the film, and the album it definitely feels less than whole commercial salt. The movie also adds one of Tigers Broke Free, which is a song that has to do with the story. There's a pretty potent encapsulation of how the Roger Waters feels about the system that killed his father. And that's how the high command took my daddy from me. And this is a movie. The dog Walker, a man whose bread and butter is getting instantly angry about movies for 9-year-olds, decided to react in the form of a parody recreation. Pink Floyd, the movie devoid of even its lack of subtlety. Okay, so what is this? Why does this exist? I'm going to say about one kind of things. That really no way around that, because the couple of facts or if people say their own kind around, I don't know, the high school education. This is pandering as hell. Basically, it's impossible to engage with something like a ball, even as sarcastically and without disingenuously leaving a lot of spell of self-salt. When you fixate on what you think is silly, why you think it's silly, these are all revealing, and that's not to say that you need to love the wall or even like the wall, or we don't tell any if you rose or if you hello if you don't. It's just finding that a position is going to demand emotional honesty. For most of the critics that's not a problem, but we'll see. The nostalgic critic, and aka the critic, aka the guy with the glasses, is a brainchild of about Doug Walker, an inspiring poem from the supercar who has into a nascent genre of angry videos. The basic format, more than Doug's one-liners and kids, usually with the comedy per kid or slapsticks and reactions and while extreme confusion or extreme anger or both. 7 million. Never leave the cave without it. A bat. Credit card? They gave him a bat credit card? They had the balls to give him the greatest superheroes of all time a bat credit card? In September 2019, the people of separated the wall. 4-minute video outing Jason Taylor and his son Griff Taylor and the collaborator of their Rob Scallion and the reception was not good. No, it's just not very funny at all. No exaggeration. I'm not being facetious. I'm not trying to be a dick. This is the worst movie review I've ever seen. When I first started watching Doug Walker's The Wall, this is what happened. So they wanted to protect me. This review has become a lot of stories online where there is something deeply compelling about it. A good trip had fallen steps to the bargain bin for $3.93. There's a lot of effort of display, but there's also really lazy, if that makes any sense. The priority seems to be, it's not a lot, and in everything, they're not doing any of it particularly good. Well, and this is what we're losing. There's so much going on, so many collaborations, so many moving parts. It really took time and energy and passion. An energy and passion that you retained on some level for the weeks and weeks that it takes to put together. But there is no evidence whatsoever about what is actually driving that. You don't just make something like this on an accident in an afternoon. This would take in weeks, if not months, to make a coordinate collaboration with the City, Rapscallion, and but it either had to be flooded, Chicago. The final version of the trial, it took 80 hours to render, not even including piping or renovating. Then there is writing, recording, props and costumes. All of which you can cut a lot of corners on, and don't make no mistake, corners here are cut, extremely cut, but they're software. Sort of things that take a week, some level, you have to care. And you have to care a little lot to commit to this amount of work. And that passion that can come from just really loving the wall, or just really hating the wall, or feeling like you have a lot to say about it, but gotta come from somewhere. And in the middle of Doug doesn't add real comedy and about they like for money. They upload that as a love letter to Pink Floyd and their music, and that just it's a love letter, Pink Floyd music, and all you telling it bro, so hollow as a pitch, because the product, the thing that we're watching, that's a good trip, and it's seemingly clearly not a love letter to Pink Floyd, and dominated by someone who did they live there said this was about Pink Floyd in the first place, and really doesn't give what they do now. There was them, I don't even know who else or them are. They're going to be angry about it, tweeting. Doug doesn't seem to understand the wall or this level, and really just doesn't appear to care what's about the wall, one way or the other, sort of. There's the sense Doug has a personal relationship with the material. Based on the depth of Doug commentary, it means the opinion of them who was wall with this time after they're committing to do a full recreation, and then didn't particularly enjoy it. It wasn't really enjoyed yesterday because the whole viewing went to the filter of looking for ideas for the recreation. The commentary is extremely shallow, but being deeply petty and mean. That also into their view. The further the ways of Doug's own related opinions. There's no real quote. The critic is used multiple times, different senses, being both critic, audience circuit, creator circuit, protagonist, but then all of those are caked in variously with sarcasm and really difficult to parse what matters it's actually supposed to be. The whole of it is just very unclear. The commentary, when it's not completely off topic, but with faint praise, well, I guess the song is kind of rad, and really performative cruel stuff, like calling up fakes. None of it feels like the kind of good-natured ripping that gets all lefted fans who are making fun of the thing they love. What's is missing at how core is any sense of motivation. That's it? We're stopping there? Well, yeah, the movie did. But I didn't even get a line. Hell, I didn't even sing a song. Well, what was the think of the movie? Well, we didn't do such a sense then. We do went on such an open vagueness. You get the end and have no idea why this was meant for the take. Why make a straight recruit that's absolutely different than the other movie? Why make a queer computer at all? Why put this much effort into a video about a subject that don't seem to have any substantive opinions on at all? And why put all this effort into this concept for this specific movie? I liked it fine, yeah, me too. A little full of itself, but good music and imagination. Fair enough. And having these questions afterwards is very bizarre when you're talking about a review. Something that is theoretically predicated entirely on, talking about your opinions. That's when there isn't really a review. It's not a parody. It's not a commentary. It's not a spoof. It's barely even about the Wall. It's honestly closer to fan fiction in a way. Doug wants to be a filmmaker. He wants to make art. He can't because he's a fundamentally incurious person who doesn't really interested in what other people think or care. And ideas are put down to what if Batman met Mario? Slapstick's focuses on multiple forms of comedy. That all comedy is one way or another is based on misery. With little to no dialogue, spectacular characters, and nothing but chases. People see it's classic because so memorable and so interesting. It's so much to care about choices. Very Road is the same way. He is YouTube's own grown Tommy Wiseau or Neil Breen, complete with some related works. Hey, so you're today up here, what do you want to do? Just watch TV. You invite him here to watch TV? I'm a sexual musician, what do you have to be happy? It had the same petty mix of incompetence and ego that is sadly intoxicating to talk about. So much of the actual content is predicated on reading that wildly long, yet so absolutely confident in the delivery. Doug decided to accuse and read too long and too padded, and then didn't flinch. They spent that between a rant about people being mean to him on Twitter, an 8-minute argument of the bestie nightmare squirrel, and it's that element, the deeply misplayed confidence, that really just makes this Digital Critic The Wall captivating. Like The Room, it is a deeply cynical product by a fundamentally untalented man, but like the idea of personal growth, making so many layers of self-protective irony that it becomes unintentionally revealing. I mean, like The Room, no, yeah, sort of. Done within what showcase of their own ideas. Whether there's his own jokes, his own singing, doing his stuff as a filmmaker. So as it is about The Wall, most part, we got into it, the more it seems to be about Doug. This is a bit of a struggle to describe, which is why I'm kind of repeating myself all over and over, but it makes sense when you see it. Tweeting, studying for that point. Very youngs about things that grind Doug's gears, and the parts that are about The Wall are more than often than not so off base that you would even think was made by its old memories of down for the granular detail are included. It's not Doug Walker's review of The Wall, it's just Doug Walker's version of The Wall. So let's talk about the specifics. It's what you expected to see. Doug's parody of The Wall as just the worst things that I have learned and didn't find online. In more victimization. There are no good teachers, not even one, not even Max did. Writer styled as, we need more victimization. The song is sung simultaneously of criticism of calling The Wall rainy, engaging in sorrow and thinly veiled about a culture war and soldier nonsense, a subject that was prop ups for times throughout the video. Most of this inexplicable Dracula expression. Welcome to high school. All your preachers are monsters. I know this looks like they want to teach you something, but they don't. They just want to teach you Bob and the argument here is that every school sucks. That opinion is special or overly substantive. They all just fell down to school because it's a popular opinion about leaders. And the bizarre whataboutism of the now fundamentalists, very creative system, while throwing a stereotype about school teaching algebra instead of car maintenance. Do you know what we teach in this wall? Avatar, taxes, revenue, subside, insurance, top skills, the house of repairs. Preposterous, we pay other people to do that thing. Because important things in their life, like algebra. I don't know, okay, sentence broke. Clearly it's the other way around. I don't know, I got a high school education. Mohahaha, this is pandering as hell. Hello, so school sucks. Roll up and pair of balls. No, the surface level here is to be said that Doug is transparently imposing his own experience at school in the 80s, 1990s in Illinois. My daughter was experiencing his primary school in the 1950s and 1990s in England. So at the dependable level, this doesn't work because it's a completely non sequitur. It's a response to another brawl. It's so off topic that misses the mark by such a wide margin that it's clear that he just wasn't paying attention. More than that, it's what interests me here is the way this person argument of school is status quo. Now talk about the grim cowardice of school helps you get a job. It's to get a job in the future. Okay, let me back up and say how bit is. The roots of public education have been two interacted, first being philosophical, the second being industrial. The defense argument is not knowledge inherently valuable and a good society to take of everyone. That a society, the sciences, mathematics, and literature are more embedded society and ethical society. The industrial argument is that tools should be able to for work. This is the history of modern public education, expense complication, but driven by industrialists who are players need more specialized work to pay work to manage and mostly meant accounting. The idea, from Fletcher's perspective, was that you can convince the government to teach everyone the reading, writing of the job, would have made it easier to fill out services needed, and lower training costs, and turn down the prices of math and literacy based labor. This second argument has had power in its vacation last 2 centuries and is still alive today. There's a tremendous amount of debate going on in circles about the balance of theory and the pragmatic modern reality of labor. There's tons of people who will argue that we should really have two school tracks. Students who don't get interested in math or Shakespeare, think algebra is useless, can go watch some training videos for a couple of years and get read by the Filament Factory. The criticism which Water is directly engaging in is about the brick in the wall. The part 2 is this arrangement school as a pipeline to industry means that what out of school, how it's taught, is being dictated by the industrialists, by corporations. The school system that then become nothing but a systematic reshaping into ideal workers, obedient, compliant, and narrowly trained into only needed for a job. It's a rejection of people who exploit labor. 2 uniform bricks in the wall. It's critical in the fundamental ordering of society. Why should this institution rampant with absurd corporation so much power over us, especially should it be given so much power over children? This is all part of the multi-layered metaphor, the wall. There is the autobiographical element placed in the specific of the English primary school in 1950-1960s, and the way that those waters adulthood became was then served as the means of subsistence of the instrument itself, because the abuse it suffered the physical violence and beating children failed and were systematized and took place within a system where the best was indifference and the worst was improving. This continues to a different day because regardless of whether or not corporal punishment is abolished and more ideal pedagogy has been railed, institutionalized, school is still as the institution and will never be an unallied good. It will always be an abuse and a manipulation, and the question of whose agenda is served by the construction of the material that must remain and the debate. So yeah, I feel confident in saying the argument here just isn't very well fed. It's not clear. It's low as nicely engaged with the question. D minus. Wait, time out. Is this really a World War II reference? No, not just a bunch of kids being hurled on train. The thing. Oh, yeah, but we put this to high school. Following, we need mirror optimization is an extended skit about Doug dressed as the critic defends the criticism. No, it's just real creepy. They're playing that as hollow and weak. The problem is that the accusation of his sarcastic weight it on Doug's own shallow misreading of everything up to this point. In the wall, pink as a child, hiding on train tunnels, sees school children out cars, and missing himself becoming faceless. This is the beginning of the happiest day. This is effectively entered into Back to the Wall, Part 2, during which the field is here faded into a meat grinder. So the more immediate imagery is slaughterhouse. Is that in part or by extension a World War reference? Yes, it is. It is a World War II reference. The movie is about the aftermath of the war. It's not an abstract concept. It's like the outfit it's a real and that have had lived through. And the wall is no broader reflection of growing up in the shadow of that war and reflecting on a value, or more specifically the lack of thereof. The statement is that the inhumanity, the system, the golden methods are ultimately homoousian of the same stuff, of the inhumanity of the attempt to cars. That comparison is only inappropriate if one, you think the message is themselves, and two, you've been ignoring the role of World War II to this point. Come on, they're just saying the school sucks. They're playing dance for what? And see, it's just a coincidence, maybe. I don't know. Those who are familiar with the wall may have noticed that this is all out of order because the joke doesn't work in order. Doug's joke is a setup for his version of this football guy ridiculed a so long weird song. This seems too silly. It's World War II with monsters too silly. This all the way around. The escalated the train tunnel segues into the part 2. The reason that matters is because originally the imagery of those guys it's set up for later imagery. The old scars, powerful visualization of war, specifically the blitz, the psychological force, the scars, this psyche of people, the scarred, the land. Like, I cannot stress this enough. Goodbye Blue Sky is one of the most potent filmmaking I've ever seen. It is the rudely effective imagery convey the scale of damage that represents. It is grim, it is haunting, it is very important as a foundation. In So Long Weird Song, they ask, World War II with monsters is too silly for a movie and has complaints about how high school bites. Too heavy. Is what the love is too silly. The waters that you have to water the beaches wasn't let that in I'm moving that also but about how high school bites. which of course, again, is predicated on that being the message, but it isn't. When it all just in a deeply misplaced by describing the sequence as World War II with monsters, as those with Liquid Radio, the Big Rim sequel. Now, this kind of literalism is literally the part of the movie. It is really part for me. It's one thing when it's aimed at a corporate press like of the kids, but just really obviously misses the place and appropriate when replied to a deeply overtly symbolic, unapologetically symbolic, and communicate what this real event happened felt like lived through. He also calls the song Oscar bait, which is funny because it's not wrong. It's not right. Goodbye wasn't eligible to Oscar, but also because it's such a deeply felt that really revealing. So long, Oscar bait song. Smoke a bong and it will feel less wrong. So long. Now I think Doug would be literally calling the song Oscar bait, but I don't think they were specifically trying to Academy, but he thinks that what is spiritually Oscar bait, which is to say, in sincere. This caption here for me is the placement innovation for just of all, just visually awful and cheap in way with the bar for 2007. And second, this so petty and mean that this is maybe think that that's it, boom, a love letter to Pink Floyd. The Imperial Eagle is equal and the Fried ones have content or self-content. I honestly can't tell if that was supposed to be content or content because neither really makes sense. I think his savior is thrower of self-content. Like Roger Waters' distraction without a big problem, but brought of his own ego. That would parse because lyrics of the song do directly address Roger Waters, and later Cloud labeled My Problems, Rose Flowers of Pity, and The Blast Love labeled Other Paper Problems. I don't know. I think one thing with this kind of world as a whiny and juvenile, then say the fact that it's encapsulated a very teenage mindset, but it's quite a different thing instead of being dated anyways. I think being thinks and not imaginary part of longevity. I don't think you can make that accusation and then turn around and insist that you liked it fine and made a love letter to its creative vision. That's something you say about things that really don't think highly of at all. So that despite it being so whiny, you see, enduring as hell, so long, Oscar bait song. This is just a love letter to Pink Floyd's music, and the wall. The song Comfortably Dumb, retooled as Comfortably Dumb, is sort of really like it's not really about the wall, but it's kind of about Doug's relationship to the wall and to media as a general. It's probably the most honest song they put on the project, almost certainly not on purpose. Nominally, is a pacing of the film, and Doug, I think, Roger Waters' his opinions are limited lining a millionaire, but it's also Doug saying he doesn't understand and he doesn't care to. The movie is challenging and he doesn't have any of this in with it own terms. He has become comfortably dumb. So I don't understand. This is not how I am. I have become comfortably dumb. And you know what? I'm not going to disagree. You said it, man. And was it supplication humor? Because I don't feel it's criminally true, but I think it's true. Going into the outbreak, there's that tour. So, okay, Up to this point, Corey Taylor has been event of Pink. As a transition, Corey is supposed to tag, so equivalent of In the Flesh and Waiting for the Worms. This is part of a running gag, but being that the actual rock musician doesn't get to sing a song at the very end, but he plays a bass credits, and although probably just little of Corey fall for a day or two and a block shooting over. The other thing that's coming on is far more trivial, but bothers me so much is that the shot is so lit, overly blue, and I'm not saying it's a stylistic choice or mistake. But this I forgot to divide plan properly and just left it, because Doug does that just all the time. After the ad break, which consists of incredibly ad break times using scam honey, the Doug said in the creation of we're selling for money. We get this. Truly, every frame is a painting, and with that, the nameless foe. No, okay. Where do we start? We start with this. You sunshine. This was dissing Thatcher's administration, but it's vague enough to put anyone you feel. Titian, Strowman, just put their face here. No, Doug. No, it really wasn't. Are there any queers in the theatre tonight? It really wasn't. It wasn't vague. Those are Jewish. That one's the coon. Not vague at all. Got right out of the wall. The wall. Not vague one teeny bit. Tiny bit. Wait, tiny bit, wait. So still not be oppressed. Put him in the wall. Bust his. Okay, so this whole segment is just Doug ranting about people being mean to him on Twitter. It is completely disconnected to the wall. Not even a tiny bit. Movie just alter ego to express otherwise a different opinion. And that's honestly a charitable reading, because otherwise you're saying that the criticism of the evangelism, the policies of austerity, the Christian norms, the violent suppression of literal dissent, of a rising homegrown fascist movement, criticism that predate the AIDS crisis well into the 80s, and this government decided it was a policy that AIDS were life and punishment. But gay problem, you're saying that although it's substantively different from people running at each other on the internet over Batman movies, and so that he really wants to feel oppressed. You have the stage. So yeah, I think the most terrible reading where we can hear is Doug just talking about himself. Hashtag, 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 hashtag. Alright, so there's only one major section left, and this is maybe where I risk personal opinion. Common among the reaction into the video is to say that the movie is really bad, the animation and it was good, but the best part. And anyone who's criticism the reviews should be kind to Finna, the animator, who put together, because it was a lot of work. So what happened is Corey enters the Channel Awesome office and is about to confront Doug when hit by a phone call. It was a field trip. It was intelligence files of all hit that. Hold on. Who is it? Hello, Critic. It's Sullivan. The satellite still okay? Yes, actually. Is Lucy Baker there? Is they there? Because I was shut the fuck up. Now, I've done all the research to put it together, so I'm gonna analyze this, but on first viewing I had zero clue what was going on. I don't know what this is, but it's clearly a reference to a video that I'm expecting to get. There's clearly some sort of backstory to these characters. It's not just an abstraction. To confusion, the whole thing is this mumblecore, overlapping ramble, and it looks like garbage, and you cannot understand what it's talking about because you can't understand what they're even saying. Not exactly giving creationists credit, it's you shit out the Hawks, the Voldemort that they make. And then this thing shows up, and then the barely intelligible dialogue just keeps going into the whole second to the rival, where it honestly doesn't get any much better. Understand? Lazy, without it being lazy. Now, before we get into the yes, there's a lot of technical competition on display. Blotting is hard, texturing is hard, rigging is hard, animation is hard. This present hours and hours of work that effort on display here. Okay, so Gunna is a YouTube animator who makes a satellite city, which I guess is a skit show, the combination of live action and CGI animation, and way too much lore for some episode of 130 seconds. So the characters in the trial are characters from the city, and it's just not good. Kind of the real shades of pace is that not good in different ways than their review so far. Particularly, this segment was made by Finna in more illustration. A trial of Arkham is called Finna's The Trial. The credits say produced by Finna, and so some embarrassed of it, using his normal stable of voice actors, which makes sense because the opinions are bad, but they're kind of bad. The time is sung in universe with editors who feel the wall falls short because all the animated monsters don't get enough screen time or development. And then another character comes in and said, I guess we can give it a pass because we're trying to tell a story. Film is bound by character, the visual affair. It never meant to tell a story. What? Okay, so this sucks. That's just really weak, disingenuous argument filtered through character and being on because having been your actual opinion into the world. It's also just wrong on a very basic level. The wall is telling a story. It's not very confidently told and it's a little bit loose, but it is very comprehensible. The animated monsters in the anime are underdeveloped the slightest because they are the presentation of the characters that were already in the movie. They are psychosocial visualization of those literal characters and the ideas that those characters represent. Parents, the state, the education system, intimate partners. The problems, Finna's thesis, is they actually are underdeveloped. They're even at the attempt of using them. The whole question, then that's lost in the clear specificity of crossover. They are not present in any meaningful capacity. They don't represent anything substantive, and they are, for the most part, awful, overbig designs, while not characters. Me with the urge to decapitate. So yeah, you're gonna have this over-designed 4D rat thing lecture about how the wall is style over substance and avoid of intellectual development, and then alien big titty goth girlfriend comes in and says call it lazy. And then when I have an about-designed wall, I'll figure I come with my tippets. Style over substance, so basic with creatures in the wild, not a drop of intellectual development. Lazy, constantly lazy. Cringe, there's no other word for it. Cringe, this makes me cringe. It's embarrassing. On a deep level, the entire structure of this doesn't work. It's a poor criticism and it's not an approach to the verification of. There's actually this isn't where you would put the movie on trial, this is where you put that on trial. This is where you take all the other ideas from the rest of the review, consolidate them, and interrogate what they say about the author. So no, I don't think it's a good part of the review, because it's still a tremendous effort for editing and really tight the concept. Just add the basics. It's confusing and muddled, and creatively, it's an ending. The wall. Take it from the original. Tear down the wall of the movie, and working backwards like that. It's just a bunch of stuff and hammered into place because preparation. And you gotta put something there. You gotta seriously to fill out and time to kill. And of course, afterwards, the whole review with laid off that or tacitly accepted this. Okay, I liked it fine. Yeah, me too. A little full of itself, but good music and imagination. Well, fair enough. And the resolution again that Corey Taylor hasn't dead yet, in the form of the SpongeBob Bob SquarePants Bounce, kind of the Bob. There is that effort. That's exactly the same, but the word and the involved and the money. It wasn't very into the and very look. Just one or two songs, a bunch of lazy jokes about the movie being really pretentious. Then I don't think this was compel people in the way it does. There is an effort on display, and it's all from a script, and it is all fall flat because it's just no good. It's trying to be impressive without being vulnerable, trying to be putting on in this piece of art, specifically for being vulnerable. And seeing it played out of a backdrop of a movie from a band that's decades and decades old. And no clear representation of why. This particular movie, this album, there's something that feels like worth this much effort. It's a baffling product. But wait, holy crap, it's longer in character had Dan. The Dan with a hat. But what did you really think about that? Like this line, that would sound, yeah,